What it do, golf fans? Welcome back to the Turn Dollars Golf Podcast. This is Liam. Alongside me is Jack. Jack, we had a interesting Open Championship. Might be just a good way to describe it. I don't. Anything beyond that just feels weird. Scotty won by like 3,000 shots because Scotty Scheffler. Um, Beyond that, golf was fun. There were some weird names in the top like five. Harris English was up there. Hao Tong Lee was up there. Matt Fitzpatrick was up there. Uh, Thoughts, questions, comments, concerns, everything. Tell me about it.
Worst major of the year. I
Yeah,
don't say that by anything more than you cannot, like, respectfully, Scotty Scheffler, great job, but you can't have a Sunday at a major where it's not competitive. There is no singular point in the, what was it, like 11 hours of coverage from start to finish where
yeah,
Scotty Scheffler was in any sort of compromised position. That, I mean, granted, weather played a lot into it. I think the scores should have ended relatively at the 7 under, and even on the broadcast, they had guys coming in just saying it was too easy out there.
yeah,
But major championships, now granted, it could have been Brian Harmon, it could have been Tiger Woods aside, it could have been anybody that was up 4, 5, 6 shots going into Sunday and not being threatened. It's just not enjoyable. Granted, do I still have bets in the line and do I still have a reason to watch? Absolutely. But like, I don't care if it's Johnny Knoxville, Bryson DeChambeau, and Tony Romo, and they're playing for $5. If it's competitive, it's fun watching. And it just, I don't know. It just didn't give it for me. But still, like overall, good open. Vent venue. Everybody was just diehard in love with it. I'm fine with it. I love a St. Andrews. I love a Carnoustie. I love things like that. But that's just like my preferential eye.
yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. I thought it was a good open. Again, the non-competitiveness on Sunday made it tough to watch. I like the fact that some of the names that were running up the leaderboards, though, were not like everyday standard plays. I was joking with Jack multiple times on like how Tong Lee, if he won, would be crazy. The guy probably won more money this past weekend than he's won in like 25 years of life.
So it's funny you mentioned that. So to highlight what Liam's saying, is we like legitimately had a conversation. We played golf together on Saturday when Hao Tong Lee popped off. We were saying I was showing him the stat on my phone that it was if he won the Open, he would make more money than the last 5 calendar years combined, which is
Which
wild.
that's crazy. So that's a super fun one. But it was interesting, but it did make for a little bit of a. I mean, if you took a nap on a Sunday while you had it on in the background for 20 minutes, I don't blame you. Needless to say, it was kind of a meh Sunday otherwise. Like you didn't miss anything so monumental to the point where you were like, what happened? What, did somebody come back? No, no, no. No. Like Scotty's still up at least 4 shots. It's pretty mellowing. Um, Let me go through and talk some highlights, and we'll go through DraftKings, FanDuel bets, etc. on this week, and then we'll move on. Some notable guys to miss the cut: Joaquin Neiman, Jason Day, Ben Griffin, Siwoo Kim, Nick Taylor, Patrick Cantlay, Cam Young, Patrick Reed, Sahith Theegala, Brooks Koepka, Colin Morikawa, Cam Smith, and Adam Scott. Some of the best low-priced options that we were all over. I just kind of highlighted a few of them, but I'm gonna butcher this guy's name, but he was the last guy I mentioned last week. Christopher Riatan,
Reatan.
Riatan. He finished T30 and he was like 5,600.
You're welcome, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, so that was a Jack and Liam special. We both liked him. Harry Hall, who we both liked, finished T28. Matt Fitzpatrick, who we both liked, finished T4, and then Harris English, who we both really liked, actually finished runner up. So those were some low priced options we were all over. The only real low priced option I think we missed was Marco Penge.
I don't know what the heck happened to him.
He just did not do what we anticipated, which is fine. Otherwise, some of our misses, I mean, Cam Young, Adam Scott, Ben Griffin. We weren't.
I hated Ben Griffin. I said, don't bet him.
I was 50-50 on Ben Griffin. I was also 50-50 on Adam Scott, but I was high on Cam Young.
Yeah.
So Again, I'm throwing in those guys' misses. They were loose misses. We were optimistic, but not necessarily heavily involved into them. Beyond that, Jack, how did your DraftKings or FanDuel do? What are we
Well,
looking at?
considering I forgot to put them in the doc, I got to go back to them real quick. So hold on, pause. You might have to go first.
Okay, all right. I'll go through my DraftKings. I did really good this past week. I had a second place in Harris English, T4 in Fitzpatrick, T7 in Xander, T16 in Tommy Fleetwood, T34 in John Rahm, and then Marco Penge, who missed a cut. So five T35s and then a missed cut is pretty good. I'm gonna win you some nice money every week.
Yeah, my DraftKings, I went 5 for 6. The only one missed was Tom McKibben, which I was actually not thinking that was going to be the case. I thought it was going to be two other guys that missed the cut before him, but that's just how life works. 7, 7, 34, 30, and 59 were my guys, just under 400 points. So you won money there. You're welcome, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah. And then as far as my FanDuel goes, I had Cam Young and Marco Penge missed the cut, but I still had a second in Harris English, a T7 in Xander, T34 in John Rahm, and then a T63 in Hotland. So nothing fancy on that one, but you're around the winning score on the 50-50 range.
Yeah, FanDuel, we went 6 for 6. Worst guy being T40 or T59 and Rosner. Everybody else was T40 and inside. Otherwise, 16, 40, 7, 34, and 30, 415 points. You guys won money there.
There you go. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna show Jack's list
No,
here
don't even
again.
worry about it. I'm just
We're
going to
not
say, because I didn't fill all that crap out, I'm going to save
okay.
everybody a bunch of time. I won, if you followed each and every bet, 21.88 units last week. That's the only metric you need to know, ladies and gentlemen.
There you go.
21.88 units. You're welcome. Brings us up to 40.88 units on the year, which in the 3 years of this is still my worst year, if you guys can believe that.
There you go. So Jack had 30 something, 33 bets and went up 21 units. I had six bets and went up 0.49 units last week. Yeah, I know. I'm just floating right around like anywhere between 16 and 20 units is just where I've sat for the last like 5 months, it feels like, which is fine. I'm still up like, 16 to 20 units every week, which is a good problem to have. So yeah, I'm up 17.24 units now on the year. After having 3 wins, 3 losses. I had Xander T20, that was a win. Fox over Hillier was a win. John Rahm T20 round one. I think he finished right at T20, but it gave me the points. So we'll call that a win. But then I had Hovland over Straka, who both didn't do very good, but I think Straka beat by 2 shots. Xander top 20 round one. He missed by a shot. And then Keegan Bradley missed cut. I think he shot, what, 6 or 7 under on Friday to
Wild.
make the cut at like -1 or -2. I felt really good about that prior, but it just didn't happen that one. So cool. On to wild cards. How'd your wild cards do this past week, Jack?
Yeah, 1 for 3, which in the grand scheme of things, is still fine. Hit Carlos, Christopher Riatan top 40 at plus 240. Rosner top 40 at plus 260. He was in the money for that for a long time. And then Rosner being the top Frenchman at plus 415. He lost by 1 shot to blanking on his name now. Pause for Adrian Sadier. So
Uh,
lost by 1 shot there, and then Romain Langesky was 1 shot behind him. So they were all in there, so I'm okay with it.
yeah, not bad though. Still going 1 for 3. I mean, hitting on a plus 240 basically makes it almost break even at that point for the week. So not too bad. I had one wild card winner was Russell Henley, top 20 at plus 250. He finished T10, so that was a win. I didn't even look at his T10 odds. It was probably like plus 400-ish. But I maybe played it a little safer, which is fine. I am now 15 wins and 21 losses on the year for wild cards. I'm trying to keep tabs on them this year. And if you're winning basically, what is that? What is it? 2 out of every like 4.5 or 5. Point being, you're winning. I know. I'm trying to do the math in my head, but the 21's messing it up. If it was 15 wins, 20 losses, it would have been a lot easier. But the point being is you're up positive numbers at this point based on just betting my wild cards.
For everybody that doesn't know, if you were here just because of our open and this is your first episode, hello back. Wild cards, I minimum of 2 to 1 odds, or 1 to 2, I guess technically, plus 200. Just bets that we like. We see the premise of it. Not comfortable waging an official unit on it. So if you do that, like 15 and 20, or 15 wins, 21 losses, doesn't sound spectacular, but if you know that it's a minimum of a 2 to 1 payout or whatnot, it's not bad.
Yeah. And Jack's hit on some crazy ones at like 25 to 1 and stuff like
Yeah.
that throughout the year. So we're probably up on those too, but we don't even keep track of the odds just because we've thrown them as wild cards. Winners. How'd your winners do this past week, Jack?
They did fine. Um, Hatton was the big one. I had him 30 to 1. He finished up there. Xander was up there, which was really nice. Bryson DeChambeau starting 7 over and finishing in 10th place was one of the craziest things I've ever seen,
Yeah.
which is spectacular. Other than that, I had Tommy Fleetwood, who was up there in the range of like 20th or something like that, and then Spieth and Burns, who were hovering.
Makes sense. Mine was not too fancy. I had some of the same names. We both had Xander. He finished T7. I threw Hovland out there. He finished T63. I think he shot 7 over on Sunday, which basically knocks you out of any chance of finishing like top 30 there. I had Cam Young who missed the cut. I was between him and Matt Fitzpatrick. Turns out Fitzpatrick definitely would have been the play. Um, and then pre-year, I had Ludwig Gobert, who finished T23, Morikawa, who missed the cut, and then Russell Henley, who finished top 10. So not awful, all things considered. But with that, Jack, let's get out of Europe. We're going back to the Twin Cities in, I almost just said Minneapolis, but that's the city. In Minnesota, we're going to the 3M Open.
Oh,
Uh,
good.
Hey, yeah, don't hide all your excitement at once there, Jack. I know how exciting the 3M Open is going to be. This is at TPC Twin Cities. It's a par 71 totaling 7,430 yards. The par fives here are basically the major scoring opportunities. They come in a few different groupings on the front and back nine, so you'll kind of notice stretches where guys go 2 or 3 under across the course of like 4 holes. Course is all about scoring. A bunch of the important stats come from putting and hitting good approach shots. So as long as your golfer can do that, he's got a chance to contend this week. Overall, though, this is a pretty average golf course on PGA Tour standards, and golfers are probably going to win somewhere in the range of 22 to 26 under this week, depending on how they do. And of course, weather could play a factor at that. If weather is bad, the obviously the conditions are going to be a little bit tougher, and guys might not get to 2,600. With that though, Jack, I don't really have any other major highlights for the 3M.
Yeah,
Do you?
one thing real quick. This is actually the 15th least predictive annual course comparatively on data metrics, finishing position, strokes gained, etc. So, like coming from a major, you're gonna see some guys that maybe alluding to one guy named Houghton Lee that did spectacular at the Open and may want to try to bite it while his odds are relatively low, but not really low because it's a terrible field. Just be cautious. So um, you're going to see a lot of guys if you look at course history that have 2 top 10s and 2 miscuts. Like that's just the reality of this event. It's really weird. There's never a massive field here. So I mean, like this is not a derogatory shot of any means, but like Tony Finau has had massive success here, but you don't see Scotty Scheffler, Rory McIlroy, and the list goes on. So um, it's an interesting one.
Yeah, and the 3M Open has only been this style of an event for the last, I think, like 7 or 8 years. So we don't have a ton of statistical data on it either, which makes it a little bit more challenging. I wouldn't dig so deep into the weeds to try and find history because just doesn't go back that far. Really, especially around this time of year, you want to look for guys that are going on good stretches right now, and that's who I would highlight. With that, Jack, let's jump into DraftKings pricing. See if you're down. We will start with the top three guys who are all over 10,000. We have Sam Burns, Maverick McNeely, and Chris Gotterup.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
Number one, Sam Burns should be far and away the most expensive guy, and he's really not. $200 more. He's only played this event a couple times, and that is 12, 32, and 7 in the last six events here. average finishing placement of 17. Funny enough, outside of balls or tee to green, which is only 0.36, he's losing shots nowhere, which is incredible. So for Sam Burns, having that built in is really, really good. Comparatively to like other events in his repertoire, this isn't even his best putting, and they're saying the greens are going to be slower relatively compared to other events. If you look at him, he's got like two outside top 40 finishes the last two events. They were outside of the United States, so I envision him coming back to an event where it's going to be nice and slow, nice and flat. It allows his ball striking to like become more toward the bell curve, and then that putter will take over. So I really like him. Maverick McNeely has played this event 3 times as well. Most importantly, he had a third place finish last year, where we really had an opportunity to win. But if you remember us talking, this is where he just choked out of left field. Um, he's had some really, really, really strong starts this year. Basically, since the Charles Schwab has been his only hiccup on the entire year, since like the end of March. So he's in really, really good form. One thing for me that really steers me away from something like this in comparison to Sam Burns is Sam Burns can go to 26 under, and I haven't seen Maverick McNeely really dominate an event that can get to 25 under. So, like, comparative, you're battling between one and two. I'm picking Sam Burns there. And then Chris Gotterup has had a monster, monster, monster 2025, at least since like April or after the Valero or whatnot. Um, a lot of his events are just teetering on awesome. Now, I say that with a grain of salt because his last two Open Championship, third place, no disputing that. Genesis Scottish Open, where he won, is awesome. 21st at the Deere or John Deere, 26th at Rocket Mortgage or Rocket Classic now, whatever it's called. 13th at the Myrtle Beach Classic, 18th at Corrales. Like we're just teetering on these events. So either he's going to win one or he's going to miss a cut extremely badly. So if you're looking for kind of a hole in the wall, like this could be an event you target him. But I also think he's going to be so extremely owned that if he does end up sucking, this is going to be an event where you look really smart because in two stretches, his average finishing placement is 45 here, and he hasn't gained more than one on strokes gained in any statistical category at this event. So there's things like that to consider.
Yeah, I mean, Jack basically highlighted any and all the information you need to know. I'll quickly just kind of give my 2 cents on this. So Sam Burns is like the best putter on tour. He's also a streaky good approach player. So it's Sam Burns who's got the putter and the approach play. Then you got Maverick McNeely who's the putter and the off the tee play. Or you got Chris Gotterup who's like the hottest name in golf in the last 8 rounds. Probably not named Scotty Scheffler. Um, just to note, with Sam Burns, he lost a stroke and a half putting at Royal Portrush. That was his first time losing putting since the Phoenix Open back in like what January, basically. So for the last 6 months, he's gained in putt. He's gained with the putter. Maverick McNeely gained 5.5 strokes off the tee at the Open. He also lost about a stroke and a half, 2 strokes in on the approach side. So he's an interesting choice here if you want to go there. And then again, nobody's changed their life in the last 8 rounds more than Chris Gotterup. Now that he won the Scottish Open, he was third at the Open. He could potentially find his way onto a Ryder Cup team. Let me be clear. Let me be clear.
Who?
Chris Gotterup, if
Yeah.
it would be a very uphill climb, I think, for him to find his way onto.
I don't think he will be a captain's pick, but like hypothetically, if he wins this event, I think it puts him in, if I remember correctly, like eighth, something of that
Well,
nature. So
well, if he wins one of these next events, then yeah, I think he's in. But I think I'm saying like even if he doesn't win one of these next events, if he just doesn't miss a bunch of cuts the next like 3 or 4 weeks and he makes it into the tour championship, which he might, he has a chance to potentially play his way onto the Ryder Cup, which is wild. And Jack kind of highlighted some of the other stuff about him. Outside of a missed cut at the Canadian Open, he actually has 10 straight top 30 finishes, which is kind of crazy. So I think that Chris Gotterup's an interesting option this week. Admittedly, though, at $10,000, this is probably the most expensive you will ever see Chris Gotterup. So you're almost buying him at like the top of his bell curve in terms of price points. You are expecting a T25 finish if you buy him at 10,000, and that is a lot of expectation on a guy who, prior to 3 weeks ago, basically couldn't do it consistently outside of once in a blue moon. So, with that, if you want this range for me, I'd probably go in this order, maybe Burns, McNeely, Gotterup, just
Yeah.
based on the fact that Burns is consistent. McNeely, we've seen it. Chris, we kind of haven't outside of the last 2 weeks. So, cool. All right, with that, into the 9K range we go. We're going to start with Wyndham Clark at 9,800, down to Sung J M at 9,000.
Yeah, I mean, first off, again, Wyndham Clark, two events outside of the country, 11th and 4th. Last three events inside of the country have been 96, 67, and 17. 59th at Canadian Open, 56th at Memorial, 50th at PGA, 63rd at Truist. He is just playing this weird game. Now, I will say that this event should suit his game. I'm trying to find stats on him in terms of this event. For whatever reason, I'm struggling finding it on the cuff, but it should fit his game where he's able to attack pins because it's a little softer. So, like, I think their ceiling is very high for him. Um, I think this category has one clear guy for me, and it's Ricky Fowler.
Mm.
I don't often go on an event, well, I have this year a couple times, and really stick my neck out for Ricky Fowler, who's, I don't want to say clearly been on the tail end, but you really look at, let's say, his last 25 starts and whatnot, outside of the Rocket Classic and the PGA, which were a major which he was cut, 15, 16, 17, 36, 18, 14. This guy has been playing some really high level, accurate, consistent golf across the entire year. And for him to be 9,500 over some guys that have struggled mightily across the year, outside of like one or two gaps. And I want to just point out, you might see like 14 to 17 cuts. Ricky Fowler's definitely not playing in all of the elevated events. He's playing in some, but not all of them, comparatively like a Wyndham Clark. So I think it's an interesting play. And if you really take a look at Ricky Fowler, his big misses, if you really take a look at 2024, which was a wild year for Ricky Fowler, where he was just missing cuts left and right. He lost 5.6 shots around at the Amex putting. His approach was awful. Off the tee was terrible. And now you take a look at his averages, and he's pretty much gaining everywhere across the board for a majority of weeks. So Ricky Fowler is the one guy in this category that I think really can stand out, and I'm sticking by that. Everybody else will probably have a good week.
Yeah. I think it's an interesting range for sure. I kind of hate this 9K range though, personally. I'd almost rather go down to the 8K range, load up on those guys instead of taking a bunch of guys from here.
Oh, sorry,
You
can I
met
cut you off?
Sure.
Yeah, found Wyndham Clark, 38, 5, two missed cuts. Taylor Pendleton here, fifth place, missed cut. So you're, it's like this entire cat, like Fishburne, or not Fishburne, whatever, ignore me. I'm lost.
Grazerman's a prime example of that too. I'll get into him in a second. But Jack mentioned Wyndham Clark. He had a Bryson DeChambeau level run to finish T4 at the Open. Brutal Thursday, but played good the rest of the week. One thing to note, the wind was actually like affecting the golfers on Thursday, which is why he played so bad. Friday through Sunday at the Open had some of the best weather conditions in the in Open history, or not in Open history, but in the Open in the last like 12 years. And so we think that definitely salvaged his game as far as off the tee play goes. He's an interesting choice. I'm not getting to him. It's just not there, not consistency wise. I'm sure somebody out there though will love Wyndham Clark. Jack mentioned Ricky Fowler. He's playing better than people probably even realize. It's just not flashy. He missed a cut back in Detroit 3 weeks ago, but then finished top 20 at both John Deere and the Open, gained across the bag when it comes to that and strokes game metrics. Driver's been great most of the year. He's got a hot putter right now. I think he's probably top two option in this range. The other guy I like in this range is probably Max Grazerman. There's basically two options here for Grazerman based on his last two performances in Europe because he missed a cut both weeks in Europe. Option one, he goes right back to his pre-Europe stretch where he had like four top 20 finishes and six starts. Or option two, the Europe stretch broke him in half and he's going to absolutely suck for the next like 4 weeks. I'd prefer to think the same mindset as Jack, where he's like, hey, he was doing good before he went over there, so he's probably going to be good when he comes back. So I'm okay going back to Grazerman. If he's probably the other guy in this range I don't hate. But it's between him and Fowler for me. One thing to note, for Sung J M, we haven't really talked about him forever. He hasn't gained on approach since the Masters, which is just kind of a crazy stat because the guy hasn't gained on approach in like 4.5 months. So definitely don't go to him, even though he's a popular name. We'll just steer clear. So sweet. All right, 8K range we go, starting with Jake Knapp at 8,900, down to Kevin Yu at 8,000.
Well, I think number one, I think one of the guys that people are aggressively overlooking in this event is Akshay Bhatia. You're looking at a guy that's unfortunately, respectfully, had just a really wild year. Just really not living up to expectations. And I say that lovingly because he's a dog and I like him very much. Um, he has been very lackluster on a lot of parts of his game, basically since let's call it since Texas stretch. Um, and it's just not coming to fruition. He's not really gained with the putter. Around the green play has been lackluster, but the one thing that's been very consistent from him all across the year has been his approach play. So all across the board, Akshay Bhatia has been a traditionally a wonderful putter of the golf ball, wonderful driver of the golf ball. And if his approach game on a lot of these soft, like this is probably one of the softest courses that he'll probably play, if not top three all year. If the driver can get in the spots that it needs to, and he just has a lackluster or even an average approach day, which for him on average, it's about 1.1 shots around, and he puts average, I'm thinking top 30 for him. So he's one of those guys that I think is really interesting this week. And I think a lot of people are overlooking him. Alongside of being overlooked, I do think it's Kevin Yu. Kevin Yu doesn't have the best stretch in the world at this event. He's got a 73rd and a 37 alike. And the big misses, if you really take a look at that, it's the putter. But in his last five starts, he's done it consecutively, and seven of his last eight have been gains. So I feel really good about him coming into it. And his approach play has always been a little bit above average. His off the tee game has been spectacular. Like if you take a look at total driving, not accuracy, distance, etc. It's like the category of total driving. He's like top five on the PGA Tour. So he's going to put himself in some really good spots if he drives the ball how he wants to. And if you take a look at these events that haven't been the biggest names in the world, again, relatively, 21 at John Deere, 25 at Travelers, third at the Canadian, fourth at the One Flight Myrtle Beach, horrific name classic. Like he's put himself in these really good spots. And for 8K, I just don't think you can really not fight that. But otherwise, Emiliano Grillo will do fine in this event. He always does.
Yeah, Emiliano Grillo is the first guy that sticks out to me. He's just not exciting, but he's gonna finish like T25 probably in this event, just knowing the way he rolls. He does most years anyways. I'll highlight Jake Knapp, 8,900. He's got four straight top 27 finishes. He also gained 10 strokes gained putting at the Scottish Open, which is crazy. That's his best putting performance of all time. It's also his first time playing in Europe, and he gains 10 strokes with the putter. Well, I say Europe, but like professionally in Europe, I should say. He's probably played in Europe before the Scottish Open, but you get the point. The semantics of professional versus not professional. He did lose 5.5 strokes gains on approach in Scotland. But this is the kind of event Jake Knapp can do really good on. He's got to go low. He's got scoring. There's nothing that's really scaring anybody about this course. So I think he's a viable option. Then we get to my favorite guy in this range, Michael Thor Bjornsson. Remember, he switched to Colin Morikawa's old caddy 3 weeks ago. Since then, he's got three straight top 21 finishes. He's gained in all strokes gained metrics outside of around the green. And now he's got an option where he's going to, again, a fairly weak field and weak event, all things considered. He can potentially come out and like contend this week, especially considering the way he's been playing recently. I think this is a very wide open tournament, so I love the idea of like a Thor Bjornsson at 8,500. Cool. If there's nobody else, we have. Let's talk about Hao Tong Lee at 7,900 down to Rio Hisasune.
Well, I got some guys. Number one that I think is interesting, that I think no one in the world, no one in the physical golf world is even thinking about right now is Cameron Champ. Cam Champ is a dog. Let me just read you his last starts, which are wild. Ready? Corn Ferry event, the Visit Knoxville Open, T52. Then he missed a cut at the UNC Health Championship, which is a Corn Ferry event, which was
Yeah.
won by a guy that I've never even heard of. Do you know how difficult that is to find an event where I've never even heard of a guy? Then he went T9 at the RBC Canadian Open, T19 at the Rocket Classic, T27 at the John Deere, T14 at ISCO, and then missed the cut at Barracuda. But like this guy's contending at all these B-level events, respectfully. And he's doing it in a really good fashion. He's gained a ton all across the board. He's been really average with the putter, really average around the green, really average in approach, but a monster off the tee. Like that's just the reality of it. And he's getting a lot more accurate. I don't know what the heck happened in those Corn Ferry events because he's missed like 5 on the year, which is like mind blowing. I don't even know how it's possible for a guy that is caliber. Um, he's an interesting one. But Hao Tong Lee, let me tell you what, Hao Tong Lee is a dog. He's been playing. I told Liam, I was like, he's 29 years old or just about to turn 30. And we've seen his name pop up if you're a real golf fan for years and years and years. The last time he played a professional event in the United States was March of 2022. That is 3.5 years ago. Sorry, he was on the Corn Ferry in September of 2022. I apologize. But it still holds true. This guy's been dominating at the highest of levels when it comes to international events. And we've talked about on this a number of times. Minwoo Lee, arguably one of the best non-PGA Tour card holders prior to this year that came over, struggled. We take a look at the Højgaard brothers when they first came over, struggled. It's a weird event. It's a weird transition. The putter's going to look a lot different. The ball's going to come off a lot different than one he's used to. And now, granted, he's dominated from Africa to Australia to Italy. So I don't think the conditions will be different. But comparatively to guys that are playing each and every day, how we take adversely for the Open Championship, you look for those guys that are dominating. I think that could be a downfall for him. So I would be hesitant to jump on him metaphorically for this one. Instead, go for some guys that I kind of like. One is, yeah,
I would also be hesitant to jump on Hao Tong Lee physically as well. You might get arrested for that, depending on what happens at the next event. So,
nice,
you
good-looking guy.
know.
Let me read you a guy that I think is going to surpass expectations. Is a guy with the name of Patrick Fishburne, one of the greatest names that I've ever seen. Since Valero, cut, 43rd, cut, 18-6-52. I don't know what the heck the guy's got into. He's also played here, finished 6th. And he is when he's on with the putter, well, let me just tell you what. It's like your 18 handicap buddy. It depends on the putter because he's fine everywhere else. He has either gained 1.5 shots or more or lost 1.5 times or more 15 times of his last 20 starts. That is wild. But you're coming to an event with very, very slow greens, all things considered. You take a look at his last 3 starts, which are slower courses, 18, 6, and 52. He's gained everywhere. So if you're looking for a guy, I always say if you're new, 7,500 and under, I am so content with a made cut here that it's not even funny just because you're looking for these guys to balance off buying a Sam Burns or whatnot. Couple other guys that I really like here. Number one is Christian Bezuidenhout. Bezuidenhout is the incorrect name that we say for fun, but for anybody that's new, he is just so consistent. I call him like a bootleg Xander Schauffele. He is just so consistent. Now, granted, the finishes are different. He's missed a bunch of cuts on the year, including at the John Deere Classic, which is wild, but he lost off the tee, wasn't putting himself in good spots. All things considered, he's one of the most accurate golfers from tee to green across the board. This should be an event that probably really suits him, even though he like almost finished last at the last year's event here, or 2 years ago, excuse me. He's right there. He's right there to putting in 4 good rounds. This could be a really good buy low spot for him. I think that's a really good showing, especially 34th at the Open, 13th at the Scottish Open. So I'm buying low on him. I'm just going to keep going because I love it. Eric Van Rooyen is another guy that you really could take a look into. Runner-up at Barracuda was a Stableford event, so it's like hard to register. Other than that, he has 3 missed cuts in his last 4 before that, and 3 cuts in his last 4 here. So he's one of those guys that I would steer heavily from. And that's what I mean by like not always taking the hot hand, and recency bias is such a big thing. But I tell you what, ladies and gentlemen, fellow lefty on the board, Matt McCarty. Matt McCarty loves these small tracks, loves these slower green events. He's put in a really good stretch of golf from winning the Black Desert and then missing like 7 of his 10 cuts following that, and then really putting together some really good golf. When he misses pretty poorly across the board in his approach play, but he's gained in 7 of his last 10. So like I'm not too worried about that, especially at his price. Austin Eckroat's always really good in this category. Very consistent. But one guy that I'm gonna say, and I don't love it, Victor Perez. Victor Perez is wild to go to. He's like the French Sam Burns. But I just he's really good with the putter when he's on. And his approach play, let me tell you what. Let me read his last. Scottish Open, 1.46 plus an approach, 1.74, 1.28, 1.44 in his last 4 of his last 6 starts in terms of approach. Putter, plus 2.18, plus 1.13, 1.29, 0.00001 positive compared to the field. So he's right there. And then, there's going to be guys like Rio Hisasuna, who I say is super good, up and coming. He's 22 years old. He's a dog. He's putting in some really good events and has been right there across the board. I'm just hoping for him to make the cut. And then Antoine Rosner, once again, he looked
He's
really, really
6,900.
solid.
He's 6,900. He's 6,900. You're jumping ahead there.
Oh, sorry.
Because I like him as well. Trust me. All right, let me throw a couple names out Jack didn't, and I'm just going to highlight like 2 guys and then talk about how great Bess is for 3 seconds. So Rico Hoey is an interesting choice. He finished T8 at the Barracuda, but he's got 3 straight T35 finishes. He crushes weak fields. I don't know if you've ever noticed that about Rico Hoey, but he does really good in these like non-major tier events. So I think he's going to be a solid choice this week. Then there's Doug Gim, who's another weak field specialist. He's played this event 5 times. He's got 4 top 27 finishes. I think he's another solid option this cheap range. He did quite well to the John Deere as well, so he's coming in some solid form. And then you have Chris Johnson now as putting specialist. I think he's probably the most mispriced person in this field. He's gained up with the approach in 7 of his last 9 starts. He's also fighting to stay in the top 70 in the OWGR. Right now, I think he's 65th, which I know we're like 3 or 4 weeks out from when the playoffs kind of all begin. But just be advised that these guys are going to start playing for a lot that are sitting right around 70th in the OWGR. So keep that in mind when guys are close like that, like Bez is, because he's going to really fight this week to try and stay in the top 70. So cool. All right. We have Antoine Rosner, 6,900, down to whoever the lowest guy is. He's is that Brandon Matthews again? Yeah, it is. All right,
I'm going to call him out.
Brandon Matthews. All right. Talk to me about Rosner because I love him too.
Yeah, well, I think Rosner's an interesting one because I picked him specifically for obviously the hot hand 22 at the Scottish Open prior to making the cut at the Open Championship. More importantly, in his last 4 starts before that, he made the cut. Was actually made the cut in like 16 straight events, basically.
Every event since the Amex.
Yeah, every event since the Amex has been really consistent across the board. But most importantly, his approach play is really high level comparatively to the other guys in this category. So at 6,900, you're giving me a guy that's gained over half a stroke on 9 of his last 10. Is some stat you have to take in. He's not the best putter in the world. If you really take a look across the board, if you really average out his last 10, he's like almost at 0. So like literally average comparatively to the field. So he's not losing anything, but his approach play is what's gaining him. So I think he's a really interesting guy to go to. Another guy who luckily I banked on him when he sucked respectfully, is Jackson Suber. Jackson Suber should have dominated the John Deere Classic and didn't. But he looked really good at the Barracuda last week, 45th at ISCO, 6th at Rocket, 18th at Canadian. He is due for another really good week. He's a fine putter. Around the green is fine, but it's really going to be medaling this week. I think he has an opportunity to make the cut at 6,900. I think that's a risk you have to be willing to take. Um, and then down here is like guys that are scrapping and clawing and whatnot. So I wouldn't really trust a lot of the guys um, down here. And then I hope Nate Lashley misses the cut by 17.
That is fair. Yeah, I know. We are not big fans of Nate Lashley on this podcast. That's for sure. If you're looking for the story behind that, we've talked about it a lot, so I'm sure you know. But yeah, not big fans of us. Therefore, we're not big fans of him. I'm gonna highlight two other guys because obviously Jack highlighted Rosner. He basically took every piece of information I had on him, which is great. I like Thurston Lawrence this week. He's played a much tougher competition than most of the price point in this range. He's also made four of his last five cuts. He's got the second best greens and regulation percentage in this range as well, below 7K in this field. So I think Thurston Lawrence is great, especially if he just hits a bunch of greens. That's really all I can ask for at this
Yeah,
point.
I will say that he played this event last year and was probably the worst showing of golf probably in history. Just to, like, not disputing what he's about to say, but
Yeah,
he lost an average per round of negative 3.79, which is really, really, really scary. But he has shown that he is able to compete with a lot of the big dogs now and across the tour. And I think him dominating in relativity comparatively to
yeah.
the majors gives you a lot of confidence to play. So if you're a course history buff, I wouldn't necessarily stress too much on that. That's what I was trying to
Yeah,
say.
there is inherent risk on Thurston Lawrence. It's not like he's played the best in this in the past, but you kind of have to take a chance if you don't go with Rosner and on basically everybody else in this range. The other option again is the guy we've highlighted a bunch, but Chris Ventura. He's basically a staple every week because he's so cheaply priced. But you always keep tabs on him because the guy has made four of his last five cuts. He also basically just stamps in like a T50 finish every week, which again, it's not flashy, but I think this week he's like 6,600-ish. So again, if you're getting 6,600 at T50, then you can go get McNeely and Sam Burns, I guess. I don't know. You can throw a couple guys into your lineup at that point. So I think Chris Ventura is another solid option.
Yeah.
But
Otherwise, there's a bunch of college graduates that are in this event. Now that like I wouldn't recommend it. Also, Quade Cummins is in your shout out. But
hmm, Cougar Collins, is he in?
I wish. But I mean, you
Oh,
have Gordon Sargent, who is an old Vanderbilt grad, but he was obviously really good in the Masters and then kind of struggled from there. Michael Lasasso, you have David Ford, that's in here. So you a couple other guys, but those are obviously the bigger three. So I think those are guys that you can really try to hone in on as maybe like an extremely, extremely buy low. I wouldn't do it, but
that's fair. All right, I think that is everything. So, Jack, what is your DraftKings lineup looking like this
yeah.
week?
I will say I played it fairly safe, so you might have to just take in and out of what we had did. I just think truly because this is an extremely unpredictable event that I wanted some guys that I felt very confident simply making the cut. I will eat my losses in the form of a smaller payout, but Sam Burns 10,500, Ricky Fowler 9,500, Akshay Bhatia 8,000, Patrick Fishburne 7,500, Christian Bezadenhout 7,200, and then Matt McCarty 7,200.
That's fair. As far as my lineup goes, I have Sam Burns at 10,500, Max Grazerman at 9,300, Michael Thorbjornsen at 8,500. Right now, I have Sam Stevens at 7,500. I'm not sold on him. I didn't really highlight him, but his game so far has just been kind of middling. If you wanted to go with like a Fishburne like Jack did at 7,500, I totally get that as well. And admittedly, I may change him out for like a Fishburne later on because I'm not fully sold on him at that price. But then I have Christian Bezuidenhout now at 7,200 and then Antoine Rosner at 6,900.
Yeah.
So
And then my FanDuel is the exact same top five guys: Burns, Fowler, Batia, excuse me, Fishburne, Bez, and then Jackson Suber at 8,400. I'm biting on guy being able to dominate some small ball.
yeah. I have a few of the same names, but yeah, Burns at 12,000, Maverick McNeely at 11,800, Michael Thorpe Bjornsson at 10,500. I have Alex Noren in this range, who I didn't really highlight over there, but he's 9,000. He's one that just came back from injury. He's had a couple good starts, a couple not so great starts, so I think that he's probably got good upside comparative to this range. And then Christian was reading out at 8,600, and then Chris Ventura at 7,900. So. Cool. How many bets this week, Jack?
I have 12, and they'll go by really quickly.
Cool.
Awesome. A lot of them are going to be made cut bets, simply because we talk about how unpredictable this event is. I won't spend too much time, but Patrick Fishburne made the cut is minus 200. Christian Bezuidenhout is minus 175. Rio Hisasune minus 138. Jackson Suber minus 138. Matt McCarty minus 175. Kevin Yu minus 200. Victor Perez minus 138. Akshay and Ricky Fowler to make the cut parlay is minus 112. One I did put money on, contemplating a cash out, is Tom Kim made cut at minus 125. He's still an extremely caliber golfer, and he has time to figure it out. Other than that, I have three placement bets. I have Sam Burns top 30 at minus 150 this morning, was like top 40 at minus 200. So if you like to go safe, you can always do that. I think he's going to hit this no problem. I have Maverick McNeely top 40 is minus 200. And then I have Haotong Li 52nd or worse at minus 120. I want to see the guy succeed. I have no issues with him. I just think that the game compared to what he's done for three consecutive years, over 3 years, is so honed in on being able to adapt and then coming to an event like this that's so soft. He is either going to dominate or going to fail, for lack of a better term. And I think it's more likely that he does not succeed, respectfully.
No, that's fair. Haotong Li, 52nd or worse, I think is a very good bet as far as that goes. He's going to struggle. It's not going to be an instantaneous quick thing. For my bets, I only did 5 this week. I'm keeping it pretty light. As Jack kind of highlighted, it's not the most confident week I ever have of betting when it comes to these weaker events. I have Antoine Rosner over Victor Perez and Matthew Pavon at plus 150. I'm basically betting on the fact that Perez and Pavon both miss a ton of cuts. Again, Jack thinks that Perez might make the cut. I'm saying it's 50-50. If you're giving me plus 150 odds that Rosner likely will make the cut and the other two won't, I'm going to take those chances. I have Burns over Maverick McNeely at minus 125. I have Max Grazerman over Wyndham Clark at plus 105. I have Max Homa over Sungjae Im at minus 105. And then I have Taylor Pendrith over Davis Thompson at minus 105. So just a lot of guys I'm not high on, like Wyndham Clark and Sungjae Im. Just betting against them basically is the simplest way I can say that my bets went this week. So wild cards, Jack, what are you looking at?
I got three, and if any of them hit, we make money. So that's all I really care about. Sam Burns, top 20 in run one is plus 220. I think if he could just have it again, a very consistent approach game, that putter's going to do him wonders on these soft greens, as we've shown. I have Ricky Fowler, top 20 in run one at plus 290. I think he's looked tremendous, and I think he has the opportunity to go out and get 6 birdies. And I think there's going to be a lot of ties in the leaderboard come round one. So I see that being a success. And then I have Akshay Bhatia, top 20 in round one is plus 310. I think he's too good of a golfer to not have one round where he pops off for a 67. And again, I'm really hoping it's round one, but if any of them hit, we make money. So we got to go 1 for 3.
No, that's fair. I am looking through. I have two wild cards now. I was gonna do one, but I'm looking at it, and the odds actually shifted down to plus 190. So I got him at plus 200. I'm gonna leave it in there for me, but if you guys don't want to do that one, I have another one that I just found that was plus 220. So I'll leave that one in there for you. The one that shifted down is Siwoo Kim as the top Korean. I got it at plus 200. He's got to beat Sungjae Im, Tom Kim, and Benny An. We've highlighted the struggles of Sungjae Im and Tom Kim. So if you're giving me plus 200 for Siwoo, who is as good of an iron player as he is, to beat basically 3 other guys that aren't at the same levels of him, I like those chances. If you want the second group or the second wild card, it's going to be Emiliano Grillo, top 20 at plus 220. So I feel quite comfortable on that one if we want to go that one as well. I know words are hard. All right, winners. Who you got this week, Jack?
Cool. Again, I always say don't, well, this is a gambling podcast, kind of. I always say don't bet winners because they're not fruitive over the course of, or lucrative over the course of the year, but we've had a really good year, so have fun with it. I think Sam Burns has been in the cusp of victories all across the board in the year. you're taking me like this is the worst field by a country worse, respectfully, um, based on like OWGR, not eyeball test. But Sam Burns 18-1. I think it should have been closer to 14, so I'm taking advantage on that. I have Akshay Bhatia 45-1. I think this course suits him really, really well. Granted, he hasn't been playing super well, so 45-1, I'm taking that. And then Patrick Fishburne 70-1. I think he should dominate these soft conditions. So I'm loving that. But I mean, I
Yeah,
would save your cash this week. That's what I would say.
yeah, if you're thinking winners this week, it might be more worthwhile to just bet top fives, as opposed to straight winners, because this is one of those weeks where you're gonna get like a Cam Champ level winner from God knows where, probably coming out of nowhere to win this event. I have three winners as well. Admittedly, I like Sam Burns. I probably would have taken him if Jack didn't already have him. But because of that, I took Michael Thorbjornsen at 32-1, Ricky Fowler at 37-1, and then Christian Bezuidenhout at 90-1 as my three winners this week. I love the fact now that this week I get to bet and root for Ricky Fowler to win a golf tournament, respectfully. So, Jack, you can suck it because you don't get to do that, at least as far as getting the winning odds as well. If he wins, I get the double. So we're going to take that one. But I am okay going for all three of these guys on top fives. That's for sure. Winners, we'll see. But I think any of them could finish top five. Sweet. All right. With that, that is the 3M Open. Next week we are at the Wyndham, which is the last one before the playoffs begin, right? Or they're adjusting this year, right? It's weird. The St. Jude is like a playoff, but it's like not really the same style of playoff event that it was last year.
The playoffs are stupid. Let me look right in the camera. I mean, they used to be great, but here's the thing. Now it's 2 seconds, and then we'll just leave everybody because I'm sure they all want to just stop listening to my voice. They had a great system where you worked your way up, but the problem is then it happened where Justin Rose won and Tiger Woods won, and they had two trophies, and they weren't prepared for that. So they went back to a different model. Fans loved it, players hated it. So now they're going back to a new model. The players love it, the fans hate it. There's never going to be a perfect solution. I say you bring them all up, match play event for 3 weeks, or however long it takes. Whoever wins, takes home $17 million. Congratulations, you fixed the fans want match play. You have a huge prize on the line. You have coverage for 3 consecutive weeks that actually means something versus Scotty Scheffler doesn't need to play the first two events because he's got a 17,000 point lead on Ryder Cups. It means nothing. Scrap it all, 3 weeks of match play for $17.5 million. Life's good. Ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, match play for 17 mil. Oh my God, sign me up. I'm
Dude,
all on it.
Scotty
Um,
Scheffler versus Patrick Fishburne matters. You know what I mean? Like now, granted, I'm sure he'd get a bye like through tournament one or whatever. You know
yeah,
what I
yeah,
mean? But
yeah.
like
You do
everything
it where
matters. You
he
just
get
gotta
like
get
two
in.
or three buys for the top like 10
Yeah.
golfers in the
Because like
OWGR,
again,
whatever it is. Yeah, yeah,
here's
yeah.
the thing. Here's my argument, right? And I know we'll talk about this again. But let's say hypothetically, I know I'm not going to, so like everybody calm down. Let's say I make it. I'm the 100 and whatever guy that's getting in, whatever the new format is.
Yeah.
I have a chance to win. The only way I get in as a low caliber guy is if I play super well in the first event, super well in the second event, and then I'm still starting 10 shots back of Scotty Scheffler, who could start 7 shots back and win. So, like, if you have match play, every single shot matters. It is awesome.
Hear me out. Put like the top 150 golfers into it. Top 20 or 25 guys get a bye through the first like week or two, but then you just match them up based on OWGR. So like whoever's 20 or 21st or
Well, it shouldn't be
26th.
OWGR. It should be they
Well,
still need the
whatever.
FedEx Cup points because it makes sense. But like now,
Then do
if
the
they're saying
points.
150, 1 and 150, should Scotty get a bye? Yes, he's earned it. But like all the way across,
Yeah.
dude, you're gonna have some wild guy, and it's so fun.
Oh yeah, and you'll get crazy upsets that way too. But that would be the most enjoyable way. But you obviously want to incentivize guys to finish in the top like 10 of the FedEx Cup points. So put the top 10 or 20 guys on a bye to like the second or third week. And they'll play. They could reseed after the second.
You're
second
telling
round.
me, let's say you have eight guys coming into the tour championship, you wouldn't watch 4 18-hole matches, two 18-hole matches, one 18-hole match for Do you know how many people, respectfully, the match is the dumbest concept ever when it's not PGA Tour golfers, CBS or whoever owns it, scrap it, go back to the old format. I'd rather watch Tiger with no legs and Phil Mickelson that can barely scrap. It's so much more fun. You're telling me for $17.5 million on the line, you wouldn't watch two guys duke it out?
Well, I guess the question would, yeah, no, I think that would work because like you could do 18 hole matches each day, so you do four matches first week, four matches. Yeah, I would do that in a heartbeat. That'd be so fun. All right, we'll come back to this and we'll highlight this again because I would even get into the point where I would start to make like a list of like how the bracket would all fill out. But I don't want to bog that down here at the end of the podcast. That and the fact that we'll go on for like 4 hours about this, Jack. So with that, we'll leave you to it. Next week is the Wyndham, last regular season event of the year, the way that golf is normally played week in and week out. So we'll leave you there. We'll see you next week for the Wyndham. Have a good one. Deuces.